In 1986, 1.5 million balloons were released in downtown Cleveland.
Cleveland has now broken the Guinness Book of World Records and released over 1 million.
This was meant to be a charity fundraiser and a way to put the growing city of Cleveland on the map. But instead of being remembered as an impressive spectacle, it would go down in history as a fatal disaster. The event was called Balloon Fest, and it was Cleveland's way of trying to rebrand. You see, at the time, they had a pretty rough reputation, which was exemplified by its well-known nickname. City leaders wanted to prove that Cleveland wasn't a mistake, and that it was well on its way to becoming a world-class city. The previous year, Disneyland had claimed the Guinness World Record for the biggest simultaneous balloon launch. And for some reason, the city leaders thought that outdoing Disneyland was the perfect way to start cleaning up Cleveland's image. Soon after, the United Way of Cleveland developed their ambitious plan to launch nearly 1,500,000 balloons over the city. The event required 6 months of planning, including the construction of a net the size of a city block. It took thousands of volunteers hours to fill the balloons. And finally, on September 27, 1986, the day of Balloon Fest arrived. As these final preparations were underway in downtown Cleveland, a very different story was unfolding just to the east on Lake Erie. The previous night, a severe storm had rolled through the area.
I do want to remind everybody in part of Ohio, we continue with that severe thunderstorm watch until 1 a.m.
And about an hour before the storm, 2 men had gone out fishing. On the morning of the 27th, the day of Balloon Fest, the 2 men were reported missing by their families. Their boat was found abandoned on the lake, and authorities suspected that the men had fallen overboard because of the weather. The Coast Guard immediately began a search and rescue operation. Meanwhile, in Cleveland's public square, over 100,000 people had gathered to witness the balloon launch. The organizers were pleased that 2 days after the balloons were launched, the Coast Guard finally called off the search for the 2 missing fishermen. And shortly after, both men's bodies washed ashore. Balloon Fest was featured in the 1988 edition of the Guinness Book of World Records. However, that was the only edition to include it. And shortly after, Guinness ended the category of balloon launching altogether.